Well, hi, everybody, and so glad you could join us on this Sunday. We're here to get you caught up on the latest from the world of politics, and we do it with our political team here and crews all across the state. President-elect Donald Trump is in the midst of putting together his team to lead his administration. Now, a big part of that is going to be international policy, foreign affairs. And joining me now to talk about what his policy may look like and the challenges that he faces is John Ubaldi. John is a 30-year veteran of the U.S. Marines. You've got a corporation that works in dealing with helping people understand foreign policy. So first of all, from, as they say, the 5,000-foot level, give me an overview. What is the immediate impact going to be on foreign policy?
Well, that's unknown, because right now he made a lot of statements during the election that left some of the foreign policy established kind of uneasy, especially his relationship, what he stated about NATO, what he said about South Korea and Japan. The question I want to see is, who does he pick as Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense and National Security Advisor? That will give us a better gauge how Donald Trump will deal with foreign affairs.
So what do you think the rest of the world is thinking right now? I mean, we've seen the messages, you know, congratulations, hope we can work together and all that kind of stuff. But in reality, what are they doing? Are they kind of cowering or just saying, I don't know what's going on?
I think it's the second option. I think they're looking at, because they listened to what he said, now they want to see what is he going to do. So they're kind of doing a wait and see type approach to him.
Okay, so let's pick this apart. Can a president just unilaterally cancel any foreign policy or not?
It depends what it is. Like the Iran nuclear deal was not ratified by the Senate. So he can't cancel a treaty that's been ratified by the Senate. But the Iran nuclear deal he can, because that wasn't done by the traditional method. And that's the reason why the president wanted to get it done the way he did it for President Obama, because he was never going to be able to get it through the Senate, not just from Republicans, but from his own party, the Democrats.
But in terms of the mechanics of foreign policy, that's basically the executive branch's job, correct?
Correct. The Constitution gives the president more leeway how he deals with foreign affairs.
When does he have to go to Congress?
When it comes to sending troops abroad, he has a certain window to let's say he sends troops into a country, he has a certain time frame, but he has to inform Congress what he's doing. When it comes to a treaty, like any climate change treaty that's signed, that he signs with other foreign leaders, he has to get that through the Senate. Otherwise, it's null and void from the United States perspective.
So some people think that, you know, Trump was actually surprised that he won, number one. And number two, the question is, has he been working on foreign policy, or somebody in the Republican Party working on foreign policy? Because, I mean, you've got so little time to get this stuff done.
The difference with Trump is he doesn't have a big cadre of staff that other candidates, other presidential elects have. Now, there are Republicans who have worked on foreign affairs. You have the Republican Senate Select Committees, the National Security Committees. They've all been working on this in both the Senate and the House. Now the question is, what vision, what direction does Donald Trump want to take U.S. foreign policy?
It almost sounds like Trump wants to get involved in the actual working with these policies, and not only that, but he'd like to be the guy that's there negotiating it. Can he do that?
Typically, you negotiate from a big ticket from way up above. He's going to have people who are going to do the minutiae, the detail. There's no way a president can do all the negotiation himself. This isn't like a business. You set the direction, you set the tone, but you're going to have his aides, your staff. The Secretary of State is going to be the head negotiator or the head diplomat.
Now, there are people in the diplomatic corps that do this for a living, so
Correct.
that when we see changes with the R or the D in the President of the United States, they are still a lot of people that are lifetime workers that have this experience. So it's not like he's coming in and they fire everybody and start all over again.
No. He's going to he can point some of his own people, but like you're saying, there are career individuals who are staffing the State Department, and the same thing happens at the Department of Defense.
All right, we're going to continue our conversation with John Ubaldi about foreign policy. We're specifically going to get into next to China, Russia, and then South America, things that are going on there. So please stay with us.
Your weather on the 9's forecast with Klystron 9, the world's most powerful television radar. The world's most powerful television radar. Bay News 9, exclusively on Spectrum, not on satellite.
Welcome back to Political Connections, talking about foreign policy with John Ubaldi from Ubaldi Reports. 30 years in the Marines, a lot of deployments over in Afghanistan and that area. Your number one concern is that whatever the team that they put together, is that it's people that have been there, like you've been there, right?
Yeah, I want somebody almost like the President Eisenhower model. If you were a friend of his, you were not selected for a cabinet level position. He picked people who had competence in their field, no matter what it was. And that's what needs to happen in foreign affairs, because like I told off the record here, Ben Rhodes, who's the president's deputy national security advisor, he got his master's degree in creative writing. He's been advising the president on Iran, the Middle East. He has no experience in this.
Okay, let's go through these really quickly. Iran, nuclear deal. That's one of the things that he promised. Can he cancel that? We think he can. Okay, let's talk about China now. Big people are really concerned that we're going to get into a tariff war, especially if the Trans-Pacific Partnership is negated. So what?
Well, the Trans-Pacific Partnership was not relation to China. I mean, in one respect. This was all the Asian countries and some countries like down in Peru and Chile down in South America. The question is, if he negates that, what do these other countries do? And if he really goes after China, like he's mentioning China as a currency manipulator. But that was also a policy by Mitt Romney. So it's a question, how does he pursue this and what level of pursuit does he go with?
Russia. We're talking Vladimir Putin, as it's properly pronounced. Clinton talked about the reset, and now Trump's going to come back in again, and it's going to be another reset.
People need to understand who Vladimir Putin is. Vladimir Putin is not a hardline communist. He's like every other Russian, he's a nationalist. Russia is important to him. Mother Russia is the foremost importance to him. But he wants to be the big player on the block, just like Russia used to be. So how the president deals with it, because of what we did in the past with Ukraine, Crimea, and Russia is involved in Syria. So you've got to keep that in mind. They're going to be dealt there somewhere. So we have to understand that, and how we deal with that is going to impact our foreign policy.
So Trump's got to send a letter, a telegram or something saying to Russia, hey, stop the hacking.
Well, it's not just a letter. He has to show that the courage to say, we're not going to stand for this, and this is what we're going to do. They don't understand letters and let's be nice. They understand you better mean what you say. You need to back it up and do what you say.
Can Trump do that? Because there's been a lot of people before the election said, well, he's kind of, not that he's cozy with Putin, but he made some statements which were kind of weird. You know, he admired Putin's leadership style, et cetera, et cetera. But now it's got to be hammered down. You can't do that anymore.
But it goes back to what we said earlier. No one knows how is he going to conduct his foreign policy. He campaigned one way. Is he going to keep that when he becomes president? And depends who he picks as Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense.
One would expect that some of this stuff will be modified. NATO. The honest truth is that people have been talking about the other NATO allies not paying their fair share for years.
That's correct. But Robert Gates, who was the Secretary of Defense under George Bush Jr. and President Obama, said the same thing. Just like when we went into Libya. The United States did 80 to 90% of all air attacks.
Right, yeah.
So we've all had this. He just said it openly, and maybe because he didn't have foreign policy credentials in the way he went about saying it. But this isn't, even Ronald Reagan complained about what NATO was doing.
Venezuela, South America, I mean, you know, we think we got a problem on the northern border of Mexico. Mexico has a huge problem on their southern border.
Exactly. Venezuela is imploding right now. After the death of Hugo Chavez, you have the current president is just destroying that country, and you have lawlessness going on. People they're starving. They don't have the food and the resources, and people could potentially leave that country.
Now, the signal that he needs to send to everybody else is how quickly we need to have the signal that says, foreign policy, we've got our act together. That's got to happen in the first 100 days?
It's going to happen in the first 100 days, but it's either going to happen before he becomes president. Who he selects as Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, and National Security Advisor, who will have his ear, that will set the tone of where we would be going.
If there's any place that you think could blow up, and I don't mean literally blow up, but I mean figuratively, could blow up and cause him the most trouble in the first 100 days, what will it likely be?
The Middle East.
Middle East.
The Middle East has confounded every president since Franklin Roosevelt today. The Middle East will always make or break a presidency. Did Jimmy Carter, President Obama.
Complicated world situation we have. John Ubaldi, Ubaldi Reports, thank you so much for your expertise. I always enjoy talking to somebody who really knows what they're talking about, and you do, John. Thank you, sir.